morning, everyone. The Kotzker Rebbe once said that depression is not a sin. There's no commandment in the Torah that says, thou shalt not be depressed. However, he said, while depression is not a sin, it leads to every other sin. What is the greatest tactic of the Yetzer Hara? Every person has the evil inclination. The greatest tactic is to weaken a person internally through depression and sadness. And once you're weak, vulnerable, and depressed, it's very easy for the Yetzer Hara to mold you and to be able to control you and motivate you to do whatever it wants, because you don't have the inner willpower to resist his temptations and his urges. Now, I want to clarify, there's a difference between depression and mental illness. Mental illness is a different story. That's a sickness, God forbid. But depression, where a person is negative, pessimistic, they're just down. And here we see a national depression in this week's Torah portion. The spies come back. What should have been a happy day, Israel is awaiting us, the promised land. God promised it to us. We already witnessed so many miracles in the past. We know this is going to be wonderful. Instead, they came back with a negative, pessimistic view. And the Torah says, "Vayivchu ha'am b'laylahu." The nation sat and wept. And the rabbis say it was a bechiyah shel chinam. It was a weeping in vain. Meaning they had no reason to cry. They had no reason to be sad. They had no reason to be depressed. They became depressed. So at the end of the parsha, we find the mitzvah of tzitzit. And when it comes to the mitzvah of tzitzit, it says you should see the tzitzit, remember the commandments of God, and do not go astray after your eyes and after your heart. So the Talmud says, what does that mean? So the Talmud says that just like when you conquer a country, you have spies that scout out the land and then conquer the country at its weakest, vulnerable points, so too the evil inclination tries to conquer the human being. And his methodology is he uses the eyes and the heart as the two spies. First, he gets you to see something that you desire and you're tempted for, and then he gets the heart to desire what the eyes saw, and then he conquers you, he gets you to commit the sin. So the question is, if that's the case, that first the eyes see something that it desires, and then the heart desires it, the verse should have said in the Shema, do not go astray, after your eyes and after your heart. But that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says, don't go astray after your heart and then after your eyes. Now, rabbis say, normally, you first see something, then you desire it. But it works the other way. There's something called the Rorschach test, where a patient in psychology is shown an image, and they project what they see. And based on their mindset, if it's a happy mindset, they see something cheerful and happy. They have a depressed mindset, they see something depressing. And therefore what the Torah is saying is, two people could look at the same picture. One is happy, one is depressed. Two spies were happy, overjoyed, and 10 were sad and depressed. And the nation followed the 10, not the 2. Why? Because the question is, what does your eyes see? And your eyes will always see what your heart desires. If you're in a good mood, you'll see good things. If you're in a bad mood and you're depressed, you'll see negative things. And therefore, it's not the reality, it's what's in your heart is what determines what you're seeing. And that's the truth of human nature. People see different things because they have different hearts. And therefore, if we get our heart right, we'll see the right things. Sadly, people who are depressed, when people look at the rejection, say, what are you depressed? You have a great life. But they can't see the good in their own life. They can only see the negative. They're focusing on the negative. They have a distorted view sometimes. Again, I'm not talking about mental illness. I'm talking about a person who dwells on the negative, not on the positive. Instead of being happy because there's so many wonderful blessings, they're focusing on a few little things that maybe aren't so perfect, and they're complaining about that. I remember once Rabbi Abraham Twersky said that somebody was complaining a lot about this and about that and the other. And Rabbi Abraham Twersky, a famous psychologist, said to the guy, I envy you. He said, what do you envy me for? I have all these problems. He was listing all those little problems. He says, clearly you don't have one big problem. Because if you had one real problem, you wouldn't be thinking about all these little minor problems. The fact that you have this problem and this little problem, that means that you don't have one major problem in your life. Focus on the big picture. Life is good. And when your heart is positive, then you see the good. Just to conclude with the story, Thomas Edison, famous inventor of the light bulb and many other things, once came home from school. And he gave his mother a note that his teacher gave him. And the mother opened the note and she started crying. And little Thomas, 8 years old, said, what's the matter, mother? He said, I'm crying tears of joy. He says, why? Because your teacher wrote to me that your son Thomas is a genius. And our school is not equipped to teach him. He's too bright. I recommend you get a private tutor so he could, grow at his pace, his capability, his potential. And that's what she did. The next day she didn't send him to school. She hired tutors and taught him at home, and he became the famous inventor, Thomas Edison. When his mother died, he was cleaning up her apartment, and he opened up a drawer, and he found a note. He opened it up. It was the note from his teacher. And when he read it, he burst out crying because the note said, "Dear Mrs. Edison, sorry to tell you, but your son Thomas has learning disabilities, and he can't keep up with the rest of the class. I recommend you take him out. We're a small school. We don't have a special ed program. Take him out and give him tutors because he can't keep up." But when a mother loves her child, she refuses to see the bad. She only sees the good in her child. And what she did was she refused to listen to the teacher. She said, "I believe in my child's potential," and told her son, "You're great and you could become great." And that's why he became great. When we focus on the good and the positive, that becomes our reality. That becomes our destiny.